10th chapter of the book of Zechariah. Shalu me Adonai matar beit malkosh. Adonai oseh chazizim u'metar geshem yitain lahem leish oseh basadeh. God will bring rain. Will bring rain in the season of the late rain. God causes storms. God provides rainstorms for them. Grass in the fields for everyone. Right? This is the great worry in the Torah. Egypt is the land that is irrigated due to the Nile. Israel is dependent upon matar, geshem. Israel is dependent upon water for there to be crops and thus for people to remain alive. So in this vision, where in yesterday's chapter we saw that the nations of the world, 10 of them are going to grab onto a Jew and say, let us be with you, let us serve your God, etc., etc. Israel is going to be a place of great wealth, great prestige, and great wisdom. And you need food to have those things. I mean, kamach, I guess, ein chayim. There's no wheat, there's no bread, there's no life, let alone there's no Torah, there's no etc., etc. Continue verse 2. Ki hatrafim dibru aven v'kosmim chazu sheker v'chalomot hashav yidaberu hevel yinachemun al kei nasu kmotzon ya'anu ki ein ro'eh. The oracles, the trafim, we're not exactly clear what trafim are. It's a word that's used a few places in the Tanakh. Rachel steals the trafim, presumably some sort of idols or charms from her father. Later on, Michal, the daughter of Shaul, the wife of David, has trafim in her house. She puts them in the bed a la Ferris Bueller, pretending that David is in the bed sick. And I don't know if Ferris Bueller got it from the whoever it is that wrote that movie got it from the book of Melachim, but that trafim, some sort of dolls of idol worship or charms, not clear exactly what they are, but they were used to consult with as opposed to God. So the oracles speak delusions and other type of kosmim, other type of visionaries or priests or whatever it might be. And he says here, and dreamers speak lies, which is interesting because he seemed to have a lot of visions, a lot of dreams himself, but those things are all hevel. They're all fake. They're all momentary. They will not bring comfort. And that's why my people have strayed like a flock. They suffer for lack of a shepherd. They haven't had good leadership. Although they had many great prophets, they just didn't listen to them. And that's why they strayed, because they listened to these people who were speaking falsehoods. Al haroim charapi v'alatudim efkod ki bakal Adonai tzvot et adrov et beit Yehuda v'sham sam otam kisus hodo b'milchama. My anger is roused against these shepherds, against these bad leaders, against the people who led the flock Bnei Israel away, led them incorrectly, and I will punish them. I'll punish the male goats, because God remembers his people, and God, is once again accounting, and he's with his people, and he'll be like a majestic warrior in battle. Mimenu pina, mimenu yate, mimenu keshet milchama, mimenu yetze kol noges yachdav. From them will come the cornerstones, from them the tent pegs, from them the bows of combat, and every captain shall also arise from them. Who is the them in this verse? So it could be referring to different kings and princes who will come to wage war. There are others who are saying, no, it's about Bnei Israel being strong and strengthened. It's about them having a strong cornerstone, a strong peg, a strong bow. There are those who say it, even though it seems to be more in the plural, mimanu, that it is actually referring to the Messiah, the Mashiach. The Hayu ki giborim, we're in verse 5. Bosim batit chutzot b'milchama v'nilchamu ki Adonai imam v'hovishu rochves yusim. And together they will be like warriors in battle, trampling in the dirts of the streets. They will fight, for God will be with them, and they will put all of the cavalry, all of those who ride on horses, to shame. I know earlier it said something about God and the horse, but if remember, we talked about in yesterday's chapter, our Mashiach, our great Savior, is going to ride on a chamor, is going to ride on a donkey. It's much more humble than the vision that began this book about the 4 horses and the man who was on the horse. And here the enemies are rochvei susim, but like it said in Tehillim, Eila barecha va'ela basusim, v'anachnu b'shem Hashem Elokeinu nazkir. They with their chariots and their horses. That's what they will depend on for war, and we will call out in the name of God. We should also have some weapons, but that's how we will fight war. וגיברתי את בית יהודה ואת בית יוסף הושיע והושבתים כי ריחמתם והיו כאשר לא זנחתם כי אני אדוני אלוהיהם ואענם. And I will give victory, I'll give strength, I will give gvura to the house of Yehuda and to the house of Yosef. Yosef's house will also gain salvation. They will be hoshavtim, they will be restored because I am going to be merciful for them. I'm not going to get rid of them forever because I am their God and I will answer their prayer. So we see here really a great vision of the future from Zechariah. It's not just about Yehuda. It's not just about these 40, 50,000 people who came back to build the second Beit HaMikdash, which they are in the midst of building during the times of these prophecies, but it's about a future. It's about a great future, and it's not just going to include these people, or let alone their cousins from the tribes of Yehuda. It's also going to include the lost tribes who have been lost at this point, defeated and thrown out of their homeland for a good 200 or so years. V'hayach gibor Ephraim v'samach libam k'mo yayin uvneihem yiru v'samechu yagel libam b'Adonai. Ephraim will be a warrior, and they will be joyous with wine. Their children will see and rejoice, and they will, and this joy will be joy that's directed to God. We've seen many times in these books about wine, and wine being at times problematic, although we have verses that say, v'yayin yismach levave nosh, the good things about wine. But here it seems to be it's in the right direction. It's not to make them drunk. It's to make them somehow, in some way, it's showing their it's Kiddush or something. It's showing their linkage and appreciation for God. And when their children see it and see that joy, then they will themselves as well continue with that. Esh rika lahem va'akabseim kifiditim v'ravu kimo rabu. I will, the way this is translated here is I will whistle, I will call out to them, and I will gather them because I redeem them, and they will increase in number. So these people who, seem to have disappeared, now they're all being gathered in, especially when we talk about those from the tribes of Ephraim, the northern kingdom. The Ezra'im ba'amim uvamer chakim yizkiruni v'chayu et b'neihem v'shavu. Because even though I placed them amongst the other nations, literally I planted them, and even though they're far away, they're uvamer chakim, they're rachok, even though they're distant, they're far away, they will remember me, and they will escape with their children and return. So is this they're escaping from a threat, that they're escaping from their children? Is this just the idea that their children are not, I don't know, you could read it as assimilating, they're escaping back to Israel? Obviously different ways to read the verses, but one of the big differences is if we go back to the beginning of the last chapter, where part of the prophecy, this messianic hope for the future was that Yerushalayim will be filled with the sounds of young men and young women, boys and girls playing in the streets and in the squares, and the elderly sitting there. And the idea being, as opposed to 70, 80 years earlier when the Babylonian conquest was happening, as opposed to during the Assyrian times when Sancheriv was leading his marauding army throughout all of Israel, there were no old people. Everybody was being killed young. There were nobody playing. So here, this idea of their children coming and their children returning to Israel seems to be in line, in accordance with that, and very much against the destruction that they have wrought in the past. Vashivotim eretz Mitzrayim me'ashur kapseim ve'el eretz Gilad u'Levanon avieim v'lo yimatzei lahem. I'll bring them back from Egypt and Assyria, and I'll bring them to the lands of Gilad and Lebanon, and even they shall not suffice for them. Meaning they're going to be so many, be so numerous that we're going to need more space. Right? This is talking about moving up into the Lebanon, moving up into the north. The Gilad is moving further east. There's going to not be enough space for them because so many are going to return. So, right, their forces will be in a narrow strait, Metzara, by the sea. They'll be hemmed in, is what it says here. They'll have very little space, and the waves will start crashing, and all of the Nile will run dry, and this will be the destruction of Assyria, and Egypt will also, the scepter, the shevet of Egypt will also depart. It will also be gone. So here we see, in a sense, why going back to Egypt? Presumably, the rationale that's given as we think about Yetziat Mitzrayim. While at times in the book of Yeshaya and other places where it said that this next redemption is going to be greater than that of Egypt, it's still a good place to use it as a comparison. And specifically here, it seems that we're talking about Ashur for two reasons. Assyria, one, again, the Persians, who are the successors, the defeaters of the Babylonians, have already given permission to the Jews in Bavel to return to Israel to rebuild the Beit HaMikdash. So we don't really need to see or talk about, or it doesn't make sense to talk about the destruction of Persia, the destruction of those people. But talking about the destruction of Assyria, which was those who took out the 10 tribes, again, the northern kingdom, that would make a lot of sense as to why they are being why they are being destroyed in the process of bringing back the Aseret HaShvatim. Continuing the last verse, verse 12, Yud Bet, V'gibartim b'Adonai u'v'shmo yithalachu ne'um Adonai. I'll make Yehuda and Ephraim mighty. And how will they be mighty? They'll be mighty through God. And they will walk with my name. That's what God says. Shmo yitalachu. Does that mean that? I guess you can read it in two different ways. They'll walk proudly with the name of God, but also God is saying, I will, in a sense, when they walk, I will be with them. My name will be with them, and therefore they will be successful. So in these two chapters, Zechariah was living at a pretty joyous time. Beit HaMikdash is being rebuilt. There's a great hope for the future, and he's giving these beautiful prophecies. As we've said many times in this book, in the last book, are these prophecies for now? Is this great redemption supposed to happen now? As Haggai and Zechariah both said was going to happen, Zerubbabel was going to become a great king. We see that didn't happen. So was it about them and it just didn't happen? The Maccabim say it was about them. As we talked about that more, even more in the book of Haggai. Or it's talking about a future redemption, and we wait for that, like in yesterday's chapter, that Ani Rochev al Chamor, we wait for that humble person riding on his donkey into Jerusalem that will demonstrate finally the messianic times that our people have been waiting for way too long.